But I decided to write a small book on as a how-to. So what I'd love for each one of you to do, how to capturing memories, how to record oral histories, I'd love for each one of you to walk out of here and go, I want to record, I've got a family member that I've got to sit down and record their story. So that's what this is about. I actually hope to encourage more people to go out and record their own oral histories. So about 3 years ago, I was actually contacted after the Veterans Project was winding down. A person I know who works for FestivALL contacted me and said, would you be interested in recording as part of FestivALL? Said, I guess 7, 8 years ago, they brought in a group and recorded oral histories back then, but nobody knew what happened to them. They all just kind of disappeared. And it was a nice service, but nobody really did anything with them afterwards. So what I decided to do is started doing it for what they wanted, but and hopefully we got sound now, right? No?
No, yeah.
But what I hoped we would, what I planned to do was I started creating the oral histories, but then also every one of the oral histories I record now goes to the archive here, so it's preserved. And then I also, I keep a copy, but I also then have been editing them into this rolling documentary project. This version that you're going to see today has 44, 45 different people in it. It's only about 50 minutes long, so each person's only a minute, minute and a half at the most. And then, but all I do with every oral history is I record the story and I take a still photograph. So you're just going to see the still photograph of the person and hear them talking and telling their short story. So I'll keep covering for a minute. They run, just, nobody's asked me this question, but I'm going to assume somebody's going to ask me this question at some point. Whenever I put out that I'm recording oral histories, I always get the questions like, or a comment that you don't want my oral history. I didn't do anything important. It's those are, in my opinion, that's exactly the point of oral histories. It's not the stuff that shows up in history books. It's the stuff that actually one of my favorite stories from yesterday, from my recordings from yesterday. Actually, it was the day before yesterday, on West Virginia Day, appropriately enough, but a person telling the story of growing up in a coal camp, and she'd been left at home. She wasn't feeling well, and her grandfather stayed home with her to take care of her for the day. And about lunchtime, she decided she was hungry, and he takes a big piece of took a piece of cornbread, split it in half, put it on a coal shovel, split it in half, cracked an egg on top of that, some like a tomato on top of that, or no, it was a slice of onion on top of that, and something else, and then literally coal shovel and stuck it in the potbelly stove, burning coal, and that was how he cooked lunch for her. I'm sure. Yay!
Wonderful. Sure. No.
Sounds a little bit like he's talking down a barrel, but it's something. I stopped it. You want it still on?
Oh, yeah.
Block doors.
Get a little reverb on there.
Let me get more into that just a second.
You were interviewed yesterday?
Okay, I was married to my husband Jacobson when I was 18 years old.
That sounds all right.
And I was 72.
That sounds all right.
So he was the love of my life.
Good? I guess so. All right. Anyways, but those are the kind of stories I love to hear. Because no one.
That's real life.
That's real life. That's stuff that you would never have heard of in your life. The idea of cooking lunch on a coal shovel. You know, I'm sure it just tasted like coal. Yeah. But I think she said she couldn't bring herself to eat it. But she was sick anyway. When you're sick to your stomach and then somebody hands you something that tastes like coal.
You really don't want egg and cornbread either.
No. So anyway, but that's an example of the kind of stories that I get from these oral histories. So without further ado,
Well, as you make do with what you have.
you make do with what you have.
Actually, I'm a third generation runner on my father's side out of McKinney County. Probably fifth generation from my mother's side from Mingo County. She was from the Fairground. It was going to make one woman something. Her dad had this 90-mile separation while they was courting, which is very unusual back in the early 1950s. You know? But somehow they managed to find a Medley, and my brother and I came along. We lived in the coal camp up above the mines. That I remember, my first experience was coming down the mountain, sitting up on my brother's back on sleigh ride in the morning. I had a cold air rush in my face, and I'm sitting up, we were around his curve, my younger brother about here behind me, we were sitting up, my older brother laying down. There was about 10 sleds hooked together with the feet, all the sleds from Country Street, coming down through the coal camp, through Suicide Curve, by the old was the two-room schoolhouse they transferred, changed into a Baptist church. So we went all dirt roads, and we come down there, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile, and we would end up at the other end of the camp, Burke Hollow Coal Camp, had 100 families. And we'd get down there, and the fathers would have big fire pit for us in the metal barrels. Mothers would have snack cakes, hot chocolate. So it's just a wonderful experience. Nobody ever locked doors. If you got the mischief on one end, time you got home, you know, you had that old belt hanging on, a belt hanging on the middle there. But they didn't call me into that, just as secret most of them.
Okay, I was married to my husband, Jeff Tomblin, when I was 18 years old. I'm now 72. So he was the love of my life. Today would have been our 54th anniversary, should he lived. I was a little country restaurant across from where I lived, and he was in Michigan. And he stopped in to get something there, and we met. And that was January. And then in June the 24th, we was married. He was from Wayne County. And when he'd gone to Michigan to find work, worked out there for years, we met, he didn't go back. He called and resigned, and then he got a job back here. And then we had to leave and go to Chicago for over a year. He was 15 years older than me, but it never made any difference whatsoever. I mean, he was just a great guy. And he came from a very poor family, and I came from a very poor family. He always teased me, told me he'd have me wearing diamonds and walking on marble. But before he passed, he did.
My great-grandfather started that dairy farm down in Knight Road, and my grandfather was the one that was probably the primary person because he picked up immediately. And my grandfather built a house over in St. Albans. And he ran the ferry, so he didn't have any problems going back and forth across the river then because he was running the ferry. The ferry was right where the car dealership is. Behind it, there's a boat landing and lots of boats parked there. And the other side of it was at the end of Blackwood Avenue, which is a dead-end street. He used to cross the railroad tracks there, but they did away with that a long time ago. And the railroad station was right there. And wherever they put a railroad station, they named the station after whoever's farm it was on. So that was called Sattes. And when you came there, you got off the train, you could get on the ferry and cross the St. Albans. My grandfather mainly operated the ferry. They built the bridge, which was used to be called the Sattes Bridge. It's called the Dick Henderson Bridge now because the legislature decided they wanted to pay for somebody else. So that was fine. When they built the bridge in the late 1930s, they offered my grandfather payment to get up his certificate to run the ferry because they built a government, they built something, there's already something existing parallel to it, they're supposed to pay for it. And my grandfather said, no, he would just keep operating the ferry, which he did for quite a while. He would undercut the toll
I went to Thomas Jefferson Junior High School. It's right across from the Baptist Temple where they built the housing for the medical students in 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade. The best junior high school band director in the county, Robert Lichty, Bob Lichty, his first year out of the Army, and his first classroom, and that was me. And our band went from very small to very large. We filled up the whole stage when, for our 9th grade concert, they had to pull every backdrop back on that stage. And I got my clarinet when I was in the 5th grade. I asked my dad if I could be in the band, and he said, "Will you practice?" And I said, "I'll practice. Yes, I'll practice. Are you sure?" Because you made monthly payments. It came from Laundry Music Company. Then it was a Bundy, and it was classic.
Well, it was getting close to Christmas. In fact, it was the Friday before Christmas. And this is the first Christmas I've ever done a paper for. So I went out to collect my paper, and the lady gave me $1. And I said, "Oh, I'll have to come back, for you're my first customer, and I don't have any change." She said, "No, I want you to keep that for a Christmas present." I was shocked, almost fainted. So I went to the next store, in the next house, and that man gave me 50 cents. I was all around all right. I didn't get something from everyone, but I'd say at least 85 to 90% gave me something, either a quarter tip or 50 cents. I got a few of the other dollars along the way. Well, I was excited. My pocket was with the secret money, but really didn't know that. Oh, well, I tell you, she's really going to be shocked. And his route ended about where my route. And I got to the last customer, and I was heading down the street, and I could see him. I went running down the door. I was going to tell him to eat before I was telling him, "Hey, you're not going to believe what happened to me." And he was having the same experience. That Saturday, we walked uptown to the National Anchor Conference in Charleston. And we asked the tellers if we'd like to change this money into $10 bills. We'd like for them to be brand new $10 bills. And it was kind of our tradition. And at Christmas, we decorated with a tree. And underneath that tree was like a little village. We had paper houses. There was some cotton there to represent snow, and little fake trees around and everything. It's also a tradition in our house. And on Christmas Eve, we each get to open one present. George and I went in there, and we started taking those $10 bills, and we placed one by a little tree and another over here in front of the little house. We would put them all around underneath this tree. Then we didn't say anything. Well, when Mother got the answer, she came in and sat down on the floor where the presents were, and we all sat there. And she reached over and got a present for George and one for me, and we were open. And all of a sudden, she let out a big squeal. A squeal of delight. Woo! But I just fainted. It's a brand new $10 bill. Wonder where that came from. We didn't have any idea where it came from. We decided maybe Santa's lost it. Woo! She let out another squeal. Look, I just found another $10 bill. And she let out a squeal. With each one she found, she squealed until she found all 11 of those $10 bills. Now, I know George and I both got a present that Christmas, but he doesn't remember what he received. I don't remember what I received, but we will never forget the Christmas we gave, the $10 bills from Mother. And I think those two little boys, almost 12 years old, learned that truly is more blessed to give than it is to receive.
Most Sundays we spent there dinner for everybody. My grandmother, she knew how to cook for one. And the kids ate last. So, we didn't get much. But, and normally the whole family was there. I mean, you take 9 kids and all of them grandchildren. It's not going to be a whole lot. And everything that we ate came on the farm. They didn't do store-bought stuff. She made bread. She canned everything. They had chickens, they had cows, it was all fresh stuff.
But considering I wasn't really from Mullins, I was really from Herndon, and then from there up in the country. I mean, I'll never forget the first day I went to Montgomery and as a student and brought suitcases and all, moved into Old Main. I was attempting to move into Old Main. Set the suitcases out of the car. I don't even remember who brought me there. But anyhow, I forgot one of them out there in the street, and they disappeared. And here I didn't have any shaving gear, all my underwear was gone. And here I'd never been in a town before, I did nothing about Montgomery. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a way to start off this 4 years of school.
That's coordinating my dad and I don't know. He helped me get started. And actually, we were mowing, I say we because he helped a lot. He did all the weed whacking. I couldn't even hold the weed whacker that way. But he would drive me around in his car. We'd load it up in the back of the trunk and take me to all the places I had to mow. Most of them were, I grew up in a neighborhood that I'm pushing my mower wherever we go. But I did have some yards that he had to drive to. So he'd load up the mower, the weed whacker, and the blower, and we'd go and we'd whack and blow while I mowed, and then we'd go on to the next one. And I think by the time I was 15, I was 21 yards. So just hopped around all summer, had the best tan in the subdivision, and knew everybody. And actually, I did just the weirdest jobs, like took care of older people and walked people's dogs and cleaned people's houses and fixed people's trucks, and I had keys to half the people in the subdivision's houses. Just really weird sort of thing, but people trusted me and I trusted them, and we just, I don't know, I just kind of took off. That's where I got my love for working for myself. Blood, sweat, and tears, that'll get you somewhere.
Yeah, after high school at that time, I was the last class that went all 6 years, 7 through 12, at the elementary high school. We were the last class that did that. My high school class was a very special class. They really were. Everybody got along, which you just don't hear about. You know, we were basically an all-white school. We had one black student, and she did with just everybody. You know, and last year she graduated before me, and last year at their 50th anniversary, she went to it. We didn't know black and white. You know, in our 7th grade, when I first went to Nitro, junior high, you know, you met a lot of new people for the first time. And of course, you had the Mountain Boys, which didn't have the best reputations in the world. We were thugs, or they called us hoods, actually, back then. They called us hoods. We weren't, but that's how they thought of us. They were the city slickers. City slickers and Nitro. Think about that.
Daddy went very much to go into service, and his company had him declared essential. And there was a very trolley mail went back and forth about that. And so he and a neighbor set up a civil defense joint right next to where we lived in a garage. And he had the hat, not that. But it was very, very pushed on us very much at that time that we had to have blackout curtains in Logan, because there was a very large power plant there that supplied coal for a large portion of the eastern part of the United States. And so it was considered strategic. Everybody was really cautious, you know, the lights, the whole business that you've seen about World War II, you know, they had no headlights, whatever. And we didn't get our news except by the radio, of course, and then the big deal would be to go to the movies and see footage that had been shot on the various battlefields. That's the way we got that kind of information.
We used to hang out in Ford, and it was there at Courier Street, not quite to the corner, but it was between McFarland and Dickens. One Friday night, Richard Butler was there playing pool, and there was this guy that came in there. His name was Jay Sugar, and he was a great big guy, big around. He looked like Jackie Casey. And he was a student at North Harvard College, and they called him Minnesota Sattes. And he came in and he was working at a nightclub on Hale Street called the Roaring Twenties. So he asked, here's Richard Butler, and he asked Richard, he said, would you like to come up here and wash glasses for $10 a month? Well, none of us had a $5 so he took the job. And then later on, he became a bartender, and George Jarrett, my friend, he became a glass washer and bartender. Well, I couldn't do that because I couldn't pass. I mean, I was just too young. So I went back to the Sterling, and then I became a cook. And pretty good cook, you know. put there most of the high school.
I grew up in Barbersville. So in Barbersville, you went uptown. To Huntington, you went downtown. And I can remember growing up 3rd Avenue in Huntington. It was so bustling and busy. And, to go to the Inter-Syndicate store, all those beautiful granite and marble staircases. I mean, I thought I was, in a palace. Huntington, it still is just gorgeous. And I can remember sitting on my grandparents' porch, going to my great uncle's house every Sunday, paying 50 cents a dozen for eggs, because he had a main farm, he had a big farm, he had to feed the pigs in the halls. That's important to me, that I tell my nieces about that. My parents have 3 sons, 5 granddaughters, 1 great-granddaughter. That I need to tell them what Uncle Lester was like, what Aunt Lisa with the purple hair was like. Always tell us our fortune from parties and had the words written down so she wouldn't forget. Tell us about the family we became before. It is about family. Tell them the stories. So they will always know who my grandparents were, who my parents' grandparents were, what they contributed to our state. There's something more important in family history. My dad was a teamster, drove 33 years, union truck driver, never missed a day of work, worked 14 hours a day. That was passed on to us. My mother, barely a high school education, married at 17, like she likes to say, because she didn't have to, because she wanted to. 3 kids, gave us every opportunity that there was. Mary Kay bought 2 funeral homes, paid for 6 educations, sent me all over the world. And they lived through us. So it is my responsibility, you better believe it, and I take it seriously, to pass that on to my nieces, that they have every opportunity that was afforded me. That is a legacy. I love the family history. They're great people.
Down there in the Shawnee Park, the Kanawha County Poor Park, most all counties had one. And if you were poor, you didn't get commodities. You went there and you lived there and you had to work. And they had dormitories for the people, and the man who lived in an angle across the street from us that at one time ran them. And they raised and canned the food. And then when you get a job, you go off the farm. But they made them work, and it was kind of a good thing. They couldn't sit back with their feet up and have a check coming in the mail. They had to work for what they got. And then there also were orphans and people who were very old and couldn't care for themselves.
But in 1919, he came here, in 1919, he gathered some money together and he opened up what was the Austrian Electric Company, located where Sears Toliver is, downtown across from Sears, across from the mall. And he bought it from the city livery where they used to shoe the horses and take care of the carriages and do stuff. The basement of it was all dirt, and they had hay and stuff on the bottom, and the smell of it. I went down there a couple times as a kid. Very
flood. See, that was the old floodplain area.
Yeah.
Hey, let me add a point there. When the different groups, we call the ethnics, so to speak, the Lebanese, Greeks, Italians, Jews, I'm sure there are others, but those 4, they came. You didn't come uptown. You could not live where we are sitting here now in the upper end of the East End, the state capital. You couldn't come up there. You had to live down the, I guess they call it the triangle area. Triangle being, with the 2 rivers. But as you worked your way up, now what Granddad did, he bought a piece of land over on Dixie Street, where he's manufacturing. That's the north side of Washington Street. Our home that we live in right now, 93 years ago, he built it up there. He couldn't live in it. So what Granddad?
They didn't allow Jews to live in the area.
I was born 4 days after my mother voted, the first time women could vote, and she told everybody my age on the 75th anniversary of women's rights to vote. They interviewed them on television, and she said, my mother didn't want me to go out because I was in what they call the family way, and nobody goes out and their big belly. And I said, I'm going to vote. And I got in the buggy with Robert, that's her husband, and we went to vote. And 4 days later, Roberta was born. And everybody that was with me watching this on television started laughing. My mother was always a women's liberal from all of her life. I've heard the stories many times about her sewing a V in her skirt and cutting slit, making like culottes out of it, and getting on a horse astride and riding down through the neighborhood and shopping everybody. She was a teenager then, so you can imagine what she was like. And I'm the oldest of her 10 children, and having babies did slow her down. She liked to dance, and I think she danced before we were born because I love to dance. All my siblings, we all like to dance.
Compared to now, it was thriving then. I'm sure I know there were strikes at the coal mines. Of course, they was very busy. The downtown of Charleston was very busy, and we couldn't walk down Capitol Street on a Saturday without having to walk into the street because the sidewalks were full of people and the stores were full of people. And you thought that that's the way it would be forever. And my father's store, what really caused him to have to close it was the stores like Kmart. First Kmart, then Hex, then Walmart. All those discount stores took the livelihood from the independent shop owners.
I had the job of gathering garbage in the neighborhood. We call it slop for the pigs. And I went all through the neighborhood and put it in those 5-gallon cans. One year, my grandfather allowed Romy, who was a neighbor, to keep pigs in the separate can there. Romy lived out the road from me, and as soon as he saw me started out to pick up garbage, why, he'd head out ahead of me. And he was picking up people's, not customers, people that I saw. And he'd get me close to his house, and he'd be like, oh, he had one pig, I had 6 pigs, I had a tree. Now, he had to walk past the chicken house to get to feed his pigs. So we took a bucket of water and put it on top of the house. We took 400 children who were ready to pull, ready to go. We tied a string around the leg and run it down through the chicken house. And when he passed that window, we pulled the string and he got choked with.
Well, when I was in the 8th grade, we had a principal that was very limited, I suppose you'd say. I would go to school, because several of us, 8 or 10 of us, we would go to school, but we didn't go to school. We went to the YMCA, had a basketball court, and we played basketball, whatever. And then it all could come around to the building was higher than the Granary, the YMCA. So we crawled over there and played poker. We would hold lunchtime. And we come back and we play. Well, I don't think we played poker all the time, but that was part of it. And we stayed in schools out, and we'd be out through the hall. My grandmother never knew. I was going to school every day. And the principal would come by, there was a bridge here across from the school. He'd come by and say, what are you going to school there? Well, we're over his head. And he'd do that 3 times a day. And that's what we tell him. And he accepted the war.
My mother worked at the state capitol, and she didn't drive. So since she had to walk, she just kept finding an apartment that was either closer or nicer than the one we had. So I counted up one time, we moved once a year until I was but it was okay. I mean, it was no problem. She was a good cook, though, and she used her
my dad, he came in and got a job at True Temple, Kelly Ice, because all his brothers worked there. So it's kind of, if I know your brother or your sister and they're a good worker, then I'm going to hire you, because it was kind of done that way. You know, it was good reference. So my mother went to work at 14. Mom said she'd come home every evening and she was dead tired because of the things. You know, it's more of assembly line things. You know, she's painted hammers. She put boxes together. They packed hammers and things like that nowadays is just done on an assembly line. Everything was, you know. And then her younger sister, when she turned 13, she goes to work too at Kelly Ice. And Opal, Mom said, didn't look as old as Mom did, because Mom was tall. She was like me. So my Aunt Opal wears high heels to work. And she was her sister's high heels. It wasn't even hers. She was 13 years old. So she goes to work, and Mom said that she couldn't hardly walk home that evening. And you had to walk. I mean, you know, you didn't, they lived on the west side, but you had to walk. They walked wherever they wanted to go. So she always never got home walking.
We had to walk to school about 8 of a mile, and they had an outside toilet, and we did not have running water in that schoolhouse. It was a fifth grade school. And we had a well house with a pump, and as a student, you know, our task was, the teachers also go in the morning, go pump water, bring in to the kids, put in the cooler. The unfortunate thing was water wasn't good as full iron, and we really couldn't drink it. The teachers out there were not the best in the world. I guess because it was a country school. We had one teacher who quit mid-year in the second grade, and then we got another woman that came in from Marshall University who was not even a full-fledged teacher, and she only got a couple of years of college. She lived with us because she had no way to get back to the school. It was kind of out of town. And, but you know, it was not a bad, I'm not altogether a bad experience if you're playing the everyone, probably a total of maybe 20, 25 kids, but most of the school, grades 1 through 6. I had one or two pretty good teachers as well, and one woman had been a teacher at Morris Charles College, and a professor up there, and she had a kid that went to school there, so she wanted to make sure her kid got a good education.
I moved here not right away. We lived walking 2 blocks maybe from the local neighborhood pool. And when I married Steve, he joined it. And I've been here only 3 years, maybe 2 years. But one day, I had the 5 kids, but we all packed up our gear and walked up to the pool with 5 others. Stephen wasn't with us, he might have been working or whatever. And we walked up to the pool and walked into the pool, and I was getting ready to settle down when in the background I heard from a man, "Oh, there's that new game you found." I turned around and I said to the kids, "Don't unpack. We're leaving." And yeah, that's it. We're leaving. And I walked out, they weren't in line. I told them why. I said, I'm going to stay in a place like that. Well, I'm surprised Stephen doesn't remember it well, because the next year he built a pool. He said, it was something you should remember. And we've been in that pool ever since.
It's all part of growing up in a small town, not a mountain town in West Virginia, more of an agricultural area that's near the Ohio River. That growing up in the 50s and 60s there, when I think back and look at it, it was more like growing up in the 40s. The movies were still very inexpensive. We would go to the Outline Theater on a Saturday for the matinee. Had 2 brothers, they give me $1, and it was a quarter each, and then we all had enough for a box of good penny or something that would last, because it was extravagant to get a candy bar for a nickel, and it would be gone where you could get a box of good and plenty or Boston baked beans or something, and you could make it through an entire double feature with cartoons and everything. We thought they were new, but they were the Three Stooges and all that stuff. We didn't go see family all that much, but when we did, we went to see something my dad wanted. We went to see The Longest Day, which was the big war movie. And I remember, because I had been trying to get, after you're 12, you had to pay adult, and I had been up till 13. I figured if I could
the river really was a great opportunity, and it came through. Started off working at Amherst, or Madison Coal, so, and working on the port down there in Point Pleasant. All the Ohio River boats, the bigger Ohio River boats from all companies drop off empties or loads, and they get sorted out down there, depending on where they gotta go. And what Amherst pretty much does in the canal is they meet those barges down there at Point Pleasant, and they'll tow them on and bring them on up the river. Usually the loads are chemicals or different forms of gravel and sand, but the majority of them are empty. They're empties, and those go all the way up to Quincy, Lloyd, Montgomery, all up in the, where all the coal loaders are. And then they get filled up, and then we pick up these 9 coal loads and bring them back down.
So on September 23rd, the day that we would open, we ran a little tiny ad in the paper that said, "Tonight is opening night of Weight Watchers." And my sister came, my mother came, my sister-in-law. The airport had the main runway closed because they were resurfacing it on that day, of course. And when we got to the Holiday Inn on the Canal Boulevard to hold our opening meeting, there was no one in the room. So I said, "I'm glad out and see where people are." Well, young people, we didn't know all the things you're supposed to do to open a business. And it never occurred to us that we should put a sign out in the lobby or open the doors. When I got to the back of the room, I couldn't open the doors. They were like, I couldn't open them. And I couldn't go out to see what was going on in the lobby because I couldn't open the doors. And that's because the lobby was packed. They were standing back to back, even belly to belly. And when I was able to bang on the doors and get them to gradually, people shuffled their feet back and the doors open. I learned as we neared the beginning hour of 8 p.m. that I was saying good evening, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Weight Watchers, to 185 people. We knew the water was coming, we didn't know how bad it would get, so my neighbors had told me, said, just stack everything, you'll be fine, we're going to get me higher than that, so, and that was not true. The water came over the foot wall. I grabbed Allison literally, and we took off and went uptown because the west end of Williamson is lower. The water comes, right at you. Really, of course, everything. We had the house, the National Guard came in later and tore it down. I think it's strange. They talk about the flood of 29 to 84 and all this. But I don't think they realized that Williamson was wiped out in 77. I mean, we got everything downtown. It's never been the same. The business is gone. I mean, it's really sad. I lost so many pictures in the flood. I lost my daughter's whole first year, things like that. And then you can't realize it. When they did the railroad there, Williamson has the largest railroad yard in the country at one time. And those oil tankers, the person started flooding. So when they hit certain things and the oil started leaking. I think the strangest thing about the flood is we watched the water come up 4th Avenue, and one of the gas stations got on fire, and I've seen fire and water. You think, how's that happening?
My grandfather came here in the 1880s, and he started the Orthodox synagogue here. There was a Reformed temple here. He came to Charleston, started backpacking up in Toliver. I don't know whether Thomasfield would hear them, but they would go to a supplier of some kind, and they would, on their backs, or whatever kind of instrument a backpack was in those days, would carry blankets and linens and the pots and pans, whatever they could handle, and they would walk up the coal fields and sell their merchandise. Made enough money that way. Sent for his wife, brought her to Charleston, and they had a house on Brown Street that for the first services of the synagogue there. And of course, he sent the word back to other people in Europe that come to America. Others that really were from his shtetl or from some kind of a
familial relationship, came to Charleston, and with them they formed the Jacobson.
The first 6 weeks we were here, the nurses all walked out of St. Francis Hospital because they hired a black nurse. They all quit. In our class, we had been here 6 weeks, knew nothing. We had been through the hospital. We had a nurse that, supervised us. But we had to go on the floor and work floor duty by ourselves. And we didn't know. If you work nights, you work by yourself. If you work days, you had one of your other classmates with you. And I remember the first night, you always charted, every shift. I didn't know anything about that. I didn't chart anything that night. Nobody died. I was happy about that. A few came back, but a lot of them got fired and didn't come back at all until they, accumulated more nurses. Her name was Miss Anderson.
Charleston was going through the transition of the triangular district being dismantled. And that was around the church, and a lot of that work had started before I came. So for a long time, I saw Pickett Lane, where the Townsend Mall is now. I was told that the block, which was where the church is located, was the hub of life and culture. In other words, the block was to Charleston what Auburn Avenue was to Atlanta, in terms of how it was that place. But the thing that surprised me was that it was downtown. Because black folk, they don't establish downtown. And for Charleston and for First Baptist to be in the heart of downtown was different than what I had thought I was fine. Black life was distinctive. It had been a special place on the clock, but it was in process of being dismantled.
Came up on this Good News Mountain garage thing. I have to say I didn't think it would work. The concept of it was to get people to donate cars, fix them up, and provide them to poor people so they could get to work or job training. Great idea. I knew from all my advocacy work with really low-income people that transportation was a huge deal. If you lived on a bus line, your rent was going to be a lot higher. And this Southern West Virginia family still provided a lot of support. So if your family was in the country, getting a car was a huge thing. So when they said, oh, you can just move on a bus line, that was giving malls can't watch the kid when it's sick and the kid can't go to school. Yeah, miss work. I mean, they gave up a lot of support just because they couldn't keep the money together. So I knew it was a good idea, but I thought, West Virginia is awful poor. But we had a grant from the Benjamin Foundation, got a contract with PHHR to see if it worked, if this would actually get people off. And amazingly, it did. And it's still consistent. It's probably the largest one in the country that does what it does. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got national awards as a rural initiative program that people in Appalachia know what it's like to be poor. They might not be poor, but it's like the drug epidemic. You'd be really hard-pressed to find someone in this state that's not had some relation, neighbor, church member's kid or whatever that's not been affected. And it's the same way about knowing people that are poor, good people that are poor, that they are that for the grace of God, tremendously successful. I just went to something last week, and there are over 2,500 cars they've given out. 13 years, 14 years. We started out with 75, and now they're probably going to give out 250 cars this year. By the time we were in business long enough to collect data, about over 90% of our people that got cars after the year were either off welfare completely or in a job training program that would leave them off.
Now, one of the fun things for me also is getting to know people around the city, from city planning and even the police chief and mayor, really involved in stuff like that together. And I really felt good about being able to be involved in, I think, trying to face some of the issues and tough times that the city's going through. It's not just this city, every city, but at least work on them and be part of it here. There are many, many different individual groups working to try to help things improve. Everything from drug addiction issues to and trying to stop, to fight, to get involved, to addiction recovery type places, issues with the police and all those kind of things that are going on, after school programs and in the school type programs, efforts by the school board. About 16 years ago at the church there, we started the Roberta Allison school program. That's been a highlight for me of trying to watch and work at the grassroots level. We got to know a lot of kids too, just from working in the same building. And that's been a joy to watch them mature. Sometimes it's heartbreaking to watch them mess up and make bad decisions. But some of the others, it's just been delightful to watch them make good decisions.
My mother's side of the family all came here to Charleston in order to work at Livingston's Ford glass plant. They were all cutters. They came from Pennsylvania. My great-grandfather came first when the plant first opened in 1917. And then soon thereafter, my grandfather followed and his brothers. And so very much, by the time it was held over, all of the men, all the families on my mom's side had come here from western Pennsylvania. If your father was a cutter, when you got old enough, 16 or 17 or so, you began your apprenticeship. So it was really a generational thing. And that's not like you didn't have a choice in the matter, but it was such a secure and good way to earn a good living that it was a difficult choice to turn down.
My dad worked there on that same mine. We didn't live there, but he worked there, and he ran a machine that was he cut the main first coal, a loader in the mines. And he was always proud of how much coal they could dig every day. And then my grandfather got hurt in a slate fall in that same mines. And he was years getting better, fell on his head and lost his sight, his eye, and his ear. And they wouldn't take care of him. And took him years to get any money from them to take care of him for that injury. He finally got a settlement. In the meantime, the family took care of him and my grandma.
They eat beans, a lot of beans. They could get beans from welfare. And after he got some money, he would not let his wife cook a bean in that house and out the back.
Yeah.
Through school was right over behind the Orthodox Church. And that's where I went to grade school. And I can remember that as I walked to school, there were several beer joints. And one of the kids I went to school with, name was Lucas, and they had the beer joint right there. A lot of family, Flowers Market, there was Icer's Market, Fairmont Dairy was right there, and an Esso station, and DeFranco Grocery. So there's lots of little groceries, stores. Of course, people don't realize now that right there, one block from the Orthodox Church was the National Guard Armory, and they held wrestling matches there. And the beer joints along here always had little posters, the Mass Marvel and Don Eagle, and I don't remember the names now, but they advertised who was going to be wrestling there.
Leon Hartman, who was reportedly the janitor here, he was African-American. It was like he took care of everything. So Leon, what he would do, a young kid, you're not supposed to eat, right? But those of us who used to the Valley Bell at the corner of Elizabeth and Washington, there was an ice cream, same shop.
So we would try to sneak out during winter. And Will would come after us and bring us back. He gave us driving lessons. People who wanted to learn how to drive. He taught us how to drive. And almost everybody who Leon taught passed the driver's test the very first time. Except for me. And when he and I said, because when he and I were driving, he said, Terry, you can park. You can't drive. You can park. He was just as a wonderful person.
Believe it or not, people talking about busing and all that. I went to a little black elementary school on Oakmont, and I would bypass a large school called Fernbank, where the white kids went. And then, but we went to a little school right off Oakmont. And so from there I went to another school. I went to a high school called Pauley. It's up there on Shrewsbury Street. Jacob Park was up there. It was a combined junior high and high school. Then they built Garnet, and then that Boyd as a high school. So I finished Boyd. Do you know who came out of Boyd? Dr. John Norman's mother who taught. Her dad, his daddy, I'm getting a little bit away from me, his daddy was the first black architect here in the state. He was an architect, I hope I'm saying it right, and she was a teacher, but he was the first, Dr. John Norman was the first heart transplant. He started, but there's deep history here. It just doesn't get out.
We live in McKinney, where we live, which is right on the Elk River. We had the woods, a big wood area, and we would play in the woods all day long. And when my mom would decide it's time to come home, she'd step out on the front porch and yell for us. And everybody in McKinney heard her yell, so we knew it was time to come home. And our biggest tree, we weren't allowed to go to the river by ourselves when we were young. And our biggest tree for my brother and I, my dad would take us fishing, and we'd go fishing in the river. Where Cooper Street comes into Elk River, there was a swimming hole. We never got to go to that swimming hole when we were young. My dad worked at DuPont then, and there was at Medley, DuPont had the golf course, which is now Kanawha High School, and across the street, DuPont had a swimming pool. So we went, that's where we swam. And then he left DuPont and became a construction carpenter, so we were no longer there. And then we got to be in high school, so we'd go to the river and swim. But our parents kept pretty close watch on us. It was a great place to grow up.
And I also had an experience with one of the dairies, ice cream. So I can't recall what the name of it was, other than the fact that it was a ice cream. We went to an ice cream counter. I took it to downtown because I walked with my daughter. She was not quite 5, as I said, to this ice cream parlor. I don't know if it was a parlor, but anyway, they sold ice cream. And I thought we would walk. It was a hot day and sit down and have a dish of ice cream. And they gave it to me in a bag and said I could not eat it in that store. They were not allowed to eat in there. So we had to take the ice cream and go home.
I have always been proud of Charleston in terms of its race relations. I think maybe worse than we get schools, but there was no real animosity or racial strife in Charleston. And of course, when I started passing on, I knew black lawyers with whom I had a very good relationship, black doctors. And of course, as the laws changed and the rules changed, we became more integrated. But there was never any, we know that we're not Southern here in West Virginia, we're mountaineers. I've also, have to say that I've never felt anything about my being Jewish has affected any success or failure I've ever experienced. When I was in the country, so they call me Hebrew. That's what they understand. That's what they got there in the Bible. Now, they didn't know what that meant, except that there were some religious implications, but no, nothing I ever achieved or failed to do was due to, I think, my being Jewish. I think that's Charleston.
Any questions? Are you all stunned into submission at this point?
That's right.
I do have a comment. The Nancy Ball, when she was talking about Williamson, one of the things that they saved out of that was the Ball family, the record books from the mortuary that they ran.
Oh, really?
And they donated them to the archives here.
Very cool.
That's one of the things that survived the flood there in '77. It was a bad flood.
That was a nasty flood.
Really interesting hearing, not growing up here, just in a neighboring county, but when I moved here 40 years ago, hearing some of my late husband's family talk about some of the things that they did, remembering before the mall was built, I would have to go to Charleston General to pick up my mother-in-law. I was coming through that area, the blocks, like, you don't stop. You lock the doors. It was really quite different back then.
Yeah, that predates me. I'll be 50 next month, but that area, through my teenage years, you know, actually I think the mall was built when I was 14, 15 years old. And I don't remember.
When I look at Charleston General now, you can still see some of the old building there, but I had to go pick her up. Like I said, certain streets I was supposed to go down, but she didn't drive. Certain streets I was not allowed to go down. Very neat, great.
In all the times that you've done these interviews and things, what has been one that has stood out in your mind as far as,
you know, probably the most jaw-dropping one was, and it's in there, but it's a really short clip. Norma Sodaro, she's the lady who was talking about the nurse walk-in at St. Francis. I'd never heard that story in my life, and she said, you know, she was from down around Beckley, I think, and she had come to Charleston to nursing school, and it's back then they were residential nursing schools. And she'd been there 6 weeks, and they heard, and actually, she said one, another person told me one, the official story on the St. Francis website, actually, they own up to it, says I think they hired 3 black nurses, but she remembered the one, and she remembered the lady's name, and I guess a whole bunch of nurses just said, we're done, and walked out the door. I'd never heard that story. I grew up in this town. I'd never heard that story, and that's just inconceivable to me at this point. But that was probably the most jaw-dropping one when she, and actually, I guess her daughter-in-law brought her in, and basically, her daughter-in-law was like, "What?" You know, she'd never heard the story either. This was just kind of an off-the-cuff comment that we were both like, "Really? Are you kidding?" It was pretty amazing. But yeah, I think that's the one that stunned me the most. But there have been a lot of really tremendous stories.
Thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you for coming.
You names of a couple other people to talk to.
Thank you all for coming. Sorry about the technical difficulties there at the beginning. We
will probably record again FestivALL Fall, so and there'll be stuff out about it, but I think that's usually late September, early October. But yeah, absolutely. If you, we just finished up 2 days, and I'm done for a couple months, but we'll definitely do it again next festival, and then probably again FestivALL Fall. So send them my way.